So good morning from our last day at Odyssey of the Seas. It is 9 o'clock actually, it's 8:58. We are the last group to be called. I think they added 2 more groups, but 56 is the last group. We're 54. It's estimated to be called at 9:15. So I went and got breakfast. We're wrapping up here. Hopefully you're not seeing right or on the potty. That's it. So we're just waiting for our number to be called. We're finishing up our room, and I will show you as much of the disembarkation process that I can. So it's 9:31 and we just got called. So we're headed out now.
Ladies and gentlemen, this time
Just off the ship. And you're supposed to wear a mask as soon as you leave the ship. Ray is not, because he's a rebel. But that was the only time we had to wear a mask, was getting on the ship and off the ship. Hi, Odyssey! So it is 9:44. It actually took 11 minutes from when we got out of the terminal. And now we're just paying for parking, gonna go to our car. So really fast, really easy. Again, if you have a passport, it's really fast. It's a lot longer if you have a birth certificate. So I recommend. It was a pretty long line, but it moved really, really fast. So 13 minutes from when we walked off the ship to when we were walking out of the terminal. So we're in our car, headed home. And 9:51, so really great time. I'm going to be doing a recap after this video, kind of talking about pros and cons of the ship, pros and cons of this particular sailing. There were things that were really great, and then there were things that were not so great.
Like her throwing up.
That would be a not so great.
That was a not so great.
That was a not so great moment. He is right, but I will not take that into account of the ship. That was, an unfortunate situation. Right, you're a classic. You're a classic. So, but anyway, so a recap is going to be coming up now. Okay, so I am back with a recap of our cruise on the Odyssey of the Seas. Now, I'm actually filming this on Sunday, April 24th. I didn't expect to film this as late as I am. We have been back exactly 4 weeks from yesterday. However, life happened. I broke my wrist. So if you follow me, if you're a subscriber, I did post in my community that I broke my wrist about a week and a half ago. I had surgery. I am recovering. So did not happen on the cruise, had nothing to do with Royal Caribbean, but has kind of postponed everything. I'm on the mend. I can move my fingers now. So I'm kind of hanging in there, but that is kind of why this is kind of taking a little while to record. So I am filming this, and I think it's probably going to go live tomorrow, but I wanted to do a recap, and I'm going to try and go through a couple things, just kind of overall thoughts. And now that I've had 4 weeks to kind of digest and think about things, and I did send an email to Royal Caribbean about a couple things. I did get a response, so I'm going to respond about that as well. So let's go ahead and get started. And the first thing I want to talk about is the current health protocols. So the current health protocols was the testing was the same as far as if you are vaccinated, 12 and older have to be vaccinated, and if you are vaccinated, you have to test 2 days before the cruise, and it can be a PCR or an antigen. If you have a 11-year-old or under, they can be unvaccinated, and they have to take it. If they're unvaccinated, they have to take a test 3 days to 1 day before. They can't take a test the same day because they take a test at the port, and that test has to be PCR. Absolutely has to be rapid PCR. The ID Now test is rapid PCR. It is the NAAT test. We take it at Walgreens. Actually, we all take the same test, but it has to be rapid because the PCR is just unreliable as far as getting back to you. I will also say is always have a backup plan. So we have the test that you can do at home. However, we go to Walgreens and we use those tests as a backup. I always make 2 appointments for my son. And thank God I did it for this cruise because his first test came back inconclusive. Have no idea why. I was freaking out thinking, maybe he has COVID. I don't know. So, but fortunately I did have I had already scheduled a test. Now, if I had tried to schedule it, I would not have been able to schedule it because they were already booked. But I had scheduled it the next day, another test, and he was able to get the test and it came back fine. It came back negative and he tested at the port, he was negative. So that's the current protocols as far as testing. Again, this is as of end of April 2022. Don't know if that's going to change, but that is current. As far as onboard, now you had to wear a mask when we were on, you had to wear a mask in the terminal. I think that has since changed because of the ruling, but I would just make sure that you have a mask just handy in case you have to wear it in the terminal. Just because, you know, in case, I think some states are different, but just make sure you have it. If you don't have to wear it, you don't want to wear it, don't wear it. But just, I would make sure you all have one just in case. Now on the ship, we, as my husband and I, never really wore a mask. We had them, but we never really wore them. My son, again, is unvaccinated. It is recommended he wear it on the ship. However, no one told us he had to. He only had to wear it in Adventure Ocean. That was where it was required, and it was required for every kid that was in Adventure Ocean, whether they were vaccinated or not. There was no bracelets for vaccinated or unvaccinated or anything. So, you know, honestly, we didn't have him wear a mask. We knew he was negative. He's had COVID, so we felt comfortable that he was not, did not have COVID. So we did not have him wear a mask. And so that was the current health protocols. Now there also is a test because this was the first time we have taken a cruise that was over 5 days. The other 3 that we've done were 2 and 3 days. So this was the first that was over 5 days, and Ryder, because he is unvaccinated, did have to take a test the last date in order to disembark. And I showed that on our CocoCay day. So if you want to watch that, you can watch that. We had to test him. We got a letter saying, you know, schedule it. You just scheduled basically the same way you scheduled the port test. And we just scheduled, we went in around 10, and then we literally disembarked right after. You didn't have to wait for the results. That was great, but we went and tested and we were able to disembark. Now you cannot disembark that last day. So whether it's CocoCay or if it's another port that day, if it's sea day, it's not a big deal, but if it is a port day, you cannot disembark until whatever person needs to test has tested. So just keep in mind, I did see that there were people who were like, oh, we tried to disembark and we couldn't. We thought we could come back later. No, you have to do it. And they'll give you a little sticker, and that just showed that he was tested. I did find out that there were absolutely no positive COVID tests on our ship. So there were no positive COVID cases on our ship. So everybody that was on the ship, nobody came down with COVID on the ship. And then all the unvaccinated kids that tested on the last day, everybody came back negative. So that was really great. Now, testing at the port at Port Everglades was a little different than Port of Miami. Port of Miami was a lot simpler. Port Everglades, you had to go through the separate line and we had to wait, and it took from swab in my son's nose to results, it took a full hour. And then it took a half an hour to actually take the test. Where in Miami, it literally took 5 minutes to get the test done, and then it was 17 minutes from swab to results. So it was an hour and a half at Port Everglades. Now again, this was 100% capacity full ship, and it was spring break. So there was a lot. I think they had pretty much, I think they can sail with 5% of unvaccinated passengers, and I think they were really close to that 5%. So, but it did take an hour and a half. It did take a while, but, just something to consider that now I have heard other people that have sailed at Port Everglades and it didn't take as long, but for us, it did take a full 90 minutes. So next I'm going to talk about onboard photos. So every cruise I do, I always pre-purchase the onboard photos. The only time I didn't was that first cruise back in July, and I ended up purchasing them. So I always recommend them. However, this cruise was very disappointing in the fact that photos were hard to find. And instead of having setups where, it's a beautiful ship, beautiful modern ship, they had a lot of backdrops. And instead of using the beauty of the ship, most of the a lot of times when they did have setups like before dinner was like backdrops, which we don't really care for. One, the lighting is horrible, but two, I mean, I could take a backdrop at JCPenney. I don't need to take it on a cruise. So that was really disappointing. We did get one great photo on formal night, the first night. Now I will say there usually is a lot of photographers on formal night. That's usually where they have the most photographers. And I was sick the second formal night. So I was really excited to I had cute outfits for all of us, and I got sick. So we missed the second formal night. So that did take into effect as far as how many pictures we got. But there were a couple nights where I was looking for a photographer and we could not find one. And I did write a full, like I said, I did write a full email to Royal Caribbean, and basically they were like, no, there were photographers there. I mean, they gave me all these stats as far as that these many pictures were taken and this and whatever. But I mean, I think I showed in my video where we were looking for pictures and we were looking for photographers, and they were hard to find. The biggest complaint that I had as a far is, and that was one thing. I mean, we have a lot of pictures. I got the pictures, that I wanted. We got a really good picture at the check-in, and we got a decent one in formal night. We got really great photos at CocoCay. And then we got some good ones at Cozumel. My biggest disappointment was when we were when we were signing up for the iFly. iFly is free on port days, but you pay $29 a person on sea days. And we decided to do it on a sea day. We figured it was easier that way. We did it on day 2. So it was the first full day of the ship. And I asked, are there ship photographers at the sessions? And they're like, yes. So great. And I planned on vlogging while we get there, and I asked, and there was a mom and a daughter, she asked, and they're like, oh, but this is their lunch break. And they acted like this was normal. This wasn't out of the ordinary. This was normal. So our appointment was at 12:20, so kind of makes sense. It's lunchtime. However, this is a day that you're being charged. I mean, we paid $87 for the 3 of us. And I asked, and it seemed like it was very normal. So when I asked, they're like, oh, you probably don't want to book this time because that's when the photographers take lunch. There was it just seemed like it could have been avoided, or, I honestly, I don't think they should have photographers covering, especially the day, like if it's complimentary on a port day, that's one thing. But the days that you're charging and you're paying and they normally have a photographer, it was very disappointing to not have pictures. Now I was able to do still shots from my video, but the pictures are not as great. A camera would have been a lot better. So I do have some pictures, but especially when I had paid for the 100 photos digital package, and to be told that a photographer was going to be there and then have not be there was very disappointing. Again, this was one of the topics I did bring up to Royal Caribbean, and their basic response was, oh yes, thank you for bringing this to our attention. This was rectified, but it happened after day 2, which really didn't make any sense to me because they were thanking me for bringing it to their attention, but it got rectified after day 2. So it just didn't make any sense. So, but either way, I would just make sure, if you do buy a package and you're expecting to have those pictures when you're booking, make sure, is this the time that the photographers are at lunch? And make sure you do that, because that was just a real big disappointment for me. Now, when we got on board, they made us go straight to our muster station because it was kind of late. I think it was like 2:30 because it had taken a while for the COVID results to come back. So they made us go straight to the muster station, which was fine because it was like literally around the corner. So that was not a problem. And then we went straight to our stateroom. It was after 1 o'clock. We went straight to our stateroom and dropped off our luggage. I think the staterooms usually open at 1 and your key is outside the door. So that was really great. I did put in my March 2022 favorites of things, and those are all favorites from this particular cruise. So if you're looking for that, if you're looking for some favorites, and they are pretty much cover everything, but a lot of stuff that for organization. I had magnets, I had clips, I had a shoe rack organizer, which was a lifesaver, and this was the first time we have been in a normal stateroom, like a regular size stateroom, ever with my son. His first cruise, we got an ocean view that was kind of odd shaped and it was large. Then when we were in the Symphony, we had a guarantee. We ended up in a handicapped stateroom, and then again with the Magic, we ended up in a handicapped stateroom, and with the Freedom, we got upgraded to a junior suite, just him and me. And then in January, we were in one of the family ultra spacious or spacious suites, which is basically a family suite. So this was the first time the three of us were in a regular size stateroom. And it just took some organization. It took some planning. I thought it was fine. My husband is like, next time get the space. We originally had one of the corner ocean view staterooms. However, the price dropped, and the price dropped on the balcony, and we could literally save $500 from upgrading from a spacious ocean view to a balcony. So we ended up upgrading to a spacious ocean view and saving $500. However, we ended up with less space. We had a balcony, but my husband has since said, next time, get the space. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about Adventure Ocean. And I had talked about in our January cruise, Adventure Ocean, the first day there was like some issues as far as checking in. Did not happen on this ship. This ship Adventure Ocean was fantastic. I was in line at 6:50, I think, the first night, because I wanted to make sure there was a line, but no problem. And what I found out is that the 6 to 12 age range can take up to 80 kids. They did hit capacity. The last night I did ask them, they did hit capacity 2 of the 6 nights. On days 3 and 4, they hit capacity around 8:30. Now they're open from 9 to 12, 2 to 5, and then 7 to 10, and then they have the after hours from 10 to 12. So they hit capacity around 8:30 on those 2 nights. So it wasn't right at 7, it wasn't even at 7:30. We got there both nights at like 8, and he was able to get in, but they did hit capacity, because it was like the 4th night that I noticed, oh wow, it hit capacity, but they said it didn't hit capacity till like 8:30. So and this was it was spring break, full. I mean, it was a packed ship. So I thought that was great. My son absolutely loved it. He had a ball there. He just really loved going there. So even the day that I got sick, they didn't quarantine. I notified the medical staff. They didn't quarantine. He went there, and he was happy that, the weather was crappy anyway, so he didn't go to the pool, and he was happy just going to Adventure Ocean. So the staff there was fantastic. They didn't have the same issues. They did have one line for everybody that were checked in. So if you had checked in, you just kind of kept going, and most everybody had checked in. And if they said, have you not checked? Have you registered yet? And if anybody said, I haven't registered, they pulled you out of line and somebody registered you. So they did kind of separate it. So they did have it separated, which I thought was fantastic. So Adventure Ocean, at least for the 6 to 12, I thought was great. Now just keep in mind, the 6 to 12 is on the 11th deck on Odyssey, and then on the 12th deck is the juniors, so the nursery and the 3 to 5. So they are on the 12th deck. We ended up on the 11th deck, and our stateroom, because we did do a guarantee balcony, ended up being right near Adventure Ocean, which was fantastic. Now again, we had a regular stateroom, but it was literally down the hall, so it was so convenient to just go and drop off my son, pick up my son. So convenient to be so close to Adventure Ocean. Our stateroom, if you want to look at the deck plan, was 11,178. So that was our stateroom. So it was close enough to Adventure Ocean, but it was fantastic. So, and it was on the same side. So that was the same side as Adventure Ocean. So it was really great. But I have absolutely no complaints about Adventure Ocean. So as far as the shows, I've mentioned this before, we're really not show people. I like shows, but it's not really a big priority of our cruises. I wanted to see Tap Factory. Tap Factory was one thing I wanted to see. I actually used to tap dance, long story, but I used to tap dance, so I wanted to see Tap Factory. We missed the 8 o'clock and there was a 10 o'clock, so we picked up our son. And at one point I thought he was kind of fading, so we went to get up and he's like, why are we leaving? I want to stay. And he loved it. He absolutely loved it. They had this male acrobat, which was incredible. I really enjoyed it. My husband enjoyed it. So if my husband enjoyed it, that's a really good show. I just thought it was really entertaining. They were just so, I actually have obviously have a different appreciation for it, but it was just a really entertaining show. So to me, that was by far the best show. The book, realized I got the alert because I had made reservations. I got the alert, your reservations. I was like, oh, well, let's go check it out. So we got there 5 minutes before we were able to walk in, found seats, and it was interesting. It's visually amazing. I just didn't get the plot. I don't know. I didn't get the plot. We didn't stay for the whole thing. We were towards the back. We stayed toward the back for that reason. And we just decided to we stayed for, I think, 4 or 5 chapters. I think we stayed for about half of it. And then we decided to get up and leave. We have a 2 to 3 hour window where we can be adults and be a couple. Use your imagination, and I was not going to, so anyway, we got up, so we left, but it was visually amazing, but some of it took a while for it to get started, and again, some of it were really good, but some of it I really didn't understand the plot. And the last one was the Effectors. That one, again, we kind of got there late. We were walking and we're like, oh, it started, let's go check it out. So we went in and we checked it out, and we sat toward the back and we watched a couple scenes of it, and that was really good. I really liked it, what we saw, but again, that was the 3rd show I had gotten my husband to see. I think he was done, but we really enjoyed it, and I showed some clips and some of the videos, but I thought it was really good. I had seen some people saying like the kids would really enjoy it. I don't know about my son. My son would not have enjoyed it. He's 6. Yes, he likes superheroes, but he would have had a much better time being in Adventure Ocean. He really enjoyed Tap Factory, but again, that was after the Adventure Ocean closed. I wouldn't have pulled him out to watch the Effectors. Would he have sat down and watched it? Probably, but I think he would have had a better time at Adventure Ocean. So I don't know, your child, every child is different, but for me, I'm glad I didn't pull him out, because I even thought about doing it, but I'm glad I didn't. Okay, so let's talk about the food. So main dining. We only went to main dining twice. So we went to main dining the first 2 nights. First night was okay, and second night, it was so slow. It was obvious, and God bless the servers because they were trying, but this was the first time the ship was at 100% capacity, and it was clearly evident that they were short-staffed throughout the ship. The only exception I would say is Adventure Ocean. I did not feel they were short-staffed, but it was clear throughout the rest of the ship that they were short-staffed and they were struggling. So we sat there and it took like 90 minutes, and we had gotten our dinners cleared, and it was 20 minutes and no one had even come to us for dessert. Like, they had taken our dessert order, but no one had come back, and we're like, let's just call it a night. Like, we'll get dessert at Cafe Promenade, we're fine. And we got up, and our waiter was just so nice. He was like, oh, I'm sorry. And we were like, no, it's not your fault. Like, we felt bad for him because they were definitely trying. But I ordered a Diet Coke 3 times, never got it. I always tend to have 2 drinks, like 2 glasses of wine or 2 glasses of champagne. And I always tell the server, hey, I'm gonna have 2 glasses if you wanna charge me now, but just bring them one after the other. And so that's never been an issue. This server just brought both to me, which was fine. It was just, I ended up having lukewarm. I think I had champagne that night, so I think I had lukewarm champagne, but it was fine. But like Diet Coke, I never ended up getting. So it was just, but again, it wasn't because they weren't trying. It wasn't because they were like lack of, you know, again, lack of trying. It was just because they were overwhelmed, and there was just, it was the first formal night. It was one of the better menus, and they were just short-staffed. So we had planned to go back for night 5, which was the second formal night, but that was the night that I got sick. So we did not go back. I will say, I had notified the medical staff, and they did send me like some food to my room. The main dining room sent me some food. Now, unfortunately, it wasn't gluten-free, but I thought that was really kind that the head chef had sent me some food to my room knowing that I was sick. So I thought that was very, very kind. So again, main dining, I think main dining is pretty typical on every ship. Again, I hope this is something that's going to correct itself as they get built. This was the first time this particular ship had ever been at 100% capacity. So I think as they get, you know, they're getting better and they're back into the regular swing of things, they're going to staff better, and I think that this will not be an issue, but it was an issue for us. Now, with that said, the Windjammer on this ship was the best I'd ever had. It was really, really great. At that point, they were still serving you. I think that has since changed, and I was a big fan of them serving you until I was on the ship, because at 100% capacity, it just didn't work. There were times where I ended up just walking away because there was nobody there to serve you. And I remember there was one point where I was trying to get a waffle for my son, and there was just nobody there. And there was this really long line, and we stood there for probably 2 to 3 minutes before somebody came back. Now, he wasn't, you know, goofing off. He was in the back doing something, but there was just nobody there to serve you, and you just couldn't grab it. So I was a fan of them serving you until the ship, because it just didn't work. And like there were times, like my husband said, he goes, there were times that I wanted something, but there just wasn't anybody, or it was just taking too long, and I just walked away. So, but with that said, the food was fantastic. My son ate the salmon, and we went and got my son food every day from the ship, from Windjammer, and brought it down to our room and took him to Adventure Ocean before we ate. And it was great. He had the steak, he had the salmon, he had a lot. So, and I did the same thing. It was great. The rice was great because that was pretty much all I could eat after day 5. But I thought the Windjammer quality of food was the best I'd had on any ship. Now, the other quick services, a local fresh, just as good as we remembered on the Freedom. Sorrento's, I don't really get to partake, but my husband and son really enjoyed it, and Cafe Promenade. All were really great. So all the quick services on the Odyssey of the Seas I thought were fantastic. And I will also say we really did enjoy dinner at the Solarium Bistro. So the Solarium Bistro is kind of like a tapas, and it's kind of like a buffet, but it's single serve. So it's an interesting thing if you want to watch. We did it back on Symphony back in 2019. It was a similar experience on the Odyssey of the Seas. Similar food. It's kind of like a Mediterranean fare. Just definitely lighter, definitely healthier, and I thought it was fantastic. We did that on night 3, so if you want to look back, you can look back at that video. I thought it was great. It was very, very fast because the food's already prepared, so it's kind of like you just kind of grab it and go, but you do have a server that will bring you drinks and water, so it was great, and it was just nice and light and fresh. We had gone to Cozumel that day, and we had eaten at a local fresh, like really late lunch. So it was a really nice light dinner and fast dinner that night. So we had planned to go back on night 4, but just everything with the bumper cars and that whole situation, we ended up just going and getting finger foods at the Diamond Lounge, and that was also the night I got sick. So we had planned to go back to the Solarium Bistro again. It didn't happen, but I thought it was fantastic. So if you like to eat healthier, not everybody does on a cruise especially, but if you do like to eat healthier or lighter, or you just want to grab something kind of, you know, just not as heavy, I think the Solarium Bistro is great. It is smaller on the Odyssey of the Seas, but we had no problem walking in, and it was great. So I did talk earlier about me getting sick on the ship, which really sucked, but again, thank God it was only one day. I just wanted to kind of recap a little bit. So we did know they had announced that there was a kind of a GI illness going around, a stomach bug going around, and I had heard about it through our Facebook group. A couple of people had gotten it, and literally I got it. It lasted, I did know at that point that it was, people were kind of recovering within 24 hours. So I kind of had an idea when I was starting it that it was going to hopefully last 24 hours, which is what it did. What I have learned since is I never had to go down to the medical infirmary. I kind of started experiencing symptoms at 1 a.m. and by the time 9 a.m. came around, I had, you know, stopped the worst of it. So I was kind of on the mend, and that was when I called them and let them know what was going on, but I didn't feel like I needed medical attention. So I never needed, you know, to go down. But those that did, there were quite a few people. There were some people that had to get an IV. Some people got, you know, pills of Zofran. Some people got, you know, an IV. There was just, some people got really, really bad. What I found out is those people, because they knew that this was spread on the ship, that those people that went down to the medical infirmary and sought treatment were not charged. Now, there was another person in our Facebook group that fell, and I think she injured her ankle, and she had to go to the medical infirmary to get treatment, and she was charged, but that was something on her own, and that makes sense. But because this particular situation was something that they knew was spreading on the ship, and they had said that you would receive a complimentary consultation, but I didn't know if that meant if you received treatment. So I thought that was really great that because they knew it was spreading on the ship, that you could go down and get treatment on your own and not be charged. So again, I don't know if that's typical or how that works, but I thought that was really great. Again, not COVID. From what I understand is that there were no COVID cases on this ship. But again, this is something where, you know, typical of cruises is that stomach bugs and these types of situations do kind of, transmit pretty easily. So something to take into effect or take into account. But I thought Royal Caribbean handled it as well as they could. I did hear that the next cruise embarkation was delayed a little bit by like maybe 1 or 2 hours because they did a deep cleaning of the entire ship. So, and I will tell you, our stateroom, because we went to CocoCay, when we came back from CocoCay, like you could smell that our room had been disinfected. And thank God it was, but it was like, whoa. Our poor, and we tipped him great, but thank God for him. He was fantastic. But yeah, they definitely had their work cut out for them. And I did hear the next sailing was delayed because I think they left port on time, but a lot of people, they didn't start embarking because they were doing a deep cleaning of the entire ship. So I thought Royal Caribbean handled it great, but just keep in mind that if there is something that's spreading on the ship, if you need to seek medical treatment and you're afraid that it's going to charge you, hopefully, fingers crossed, because it's spread on the ship, they won't. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about is CocoCay. So first up, the water park. So we bought water park tickets. This is the first time that we'd ever been to the water park. Our son is 6. He is 46 inches. So he is 48 inches is the height that you can ride everything. And I think it's either 40 or 42 where you can start to ride. So we weren't sure what he could ride, and we weren't even sure if he was going to enjoy it. But we got tickets, I think, at like half off during Black Friday. So we thought this would be a great, if he didn't like it, it wasn't going to be a huge loss. It wasn't going to be $300. It was going to be half that. So he loved it. He absolutely loved it. The weather sucked. The weather was cold. It was windy. It was a little rainy. And having been sick the day before, I felt like crap. But I knew my son wanted to be there, and I made the most of it. So, but there was enough for him. There's the wave pool. Now, we never made it to the wave pool because it was just so cold, but that's available. There's 2 slides on the Daredevil's Peak that that smaller individuals can ride, and then that whole tower. The other one, which is with the slingshot and I forgot the other one, but those were great. Slingshot was amazing. Slingshot, we rode it twice, was amazing. I did show a clip of it, or a video of us going down it. I did it with my phone, and I thought I did a pretty good job considering I was terrified. But that was our second time. The other one, which is you could go with one, you do a raft and you can do one person or two people. So my husband and son went in one, and then I went in the other. And then there's one that's, there's four, they I think it's called the Speedway, and they race. That one sucked because that one's with a mat and you go forward, and literally the water was just in your face the whole time. We went, and there's no line for that, and there's a reason. So we went down that one, and yeah, that was the only time we went down that one. But we first got in line for the Slingshot because we just saw a line and we figured, okay, that's the line. And we stood in line, and then somebody came around literally within 2 or 3 minutes and said, this is the line for Slingshot. This line is going to be at least an hour, maybe even an hour and a half long. But if you want to ride the other two slides, you can go ahead and go. So that's what we did. And then, so I would say is if the line for Slingshot is really long, wait till the end of the day. When we went around 3:30, it had definitely died down, and we were able to ride it twice with like a 20-minute wait. There was one time where it was like it was down to like 5 people, but we were riding the other slide, and we had brought up our raft or inflatables with us. So, and then by the time we went back, the line had gotten longer, but it was still great. It was just a really great day, even though I felt like crap. So I would say if you have a child that's between that 42 and 48 inches, there's still enough for them to do. The adventure park, you know, my son is not very athletic, but he enjoyed it. So it was just a lot of fun. I will try and get a cabana in the thrill park next time because I think it's definitely worth it. However, it needs to be a good price because right now at $1,000, it's just not worth it because they only seat 6. We're only 3 people. It's just way too expensive, but they have them all over. So there's one at the base of Daredevil's Peak. There's a couple at the base of Slingshot, and there's a couple behind the wave pool. And you know, I don't think you really get to choose where you get to go, but those are all the different locations for the cabanas at the Thrill Water Park. But I thought the Thrill Water Park was great. I'm not a water park person, and I actually had a good time. So the last thing we're going to talk about is the Oasis Lagoon Cabana, and I don't know what to say. Now, I had gotten a really good price for these, again, on Black Friday, and my thought was we really weren't sure at that point if my son was going to do the water park. We really weren't sure. And I had actually intended to cancel the Oasis Lagoon Cabana, and I forgot to because the online booking window closes 3 days before the sailing. So I went to cancel, and I realized it was 2 days before sailing, and I had forgotten. So I was like, okay, whatever. And then we were on the ship. I was like, well, maybe we'll just keep it. You know, it'll be nice to have somewhere to kind of go and kind of relax. And considering I had been sick, I was glad that we had a place to relax. And the thought is that I won't have to go up and get food for everybody and someone can serve me because I have been not feeling good for the last 24 hours. That was not the case. Our server was MIA. Now the concierge, the gentleman that checked us in, he was fantastic, showed us everything. She came over at first, checked us in, gave us a Diet Coke, great. We went to the water park, we came back. There's a little like pressed for refuel, we checked it, didn't come. Checked again, didn't come. You can watch the video, we pressed it, and finally it was like, okay, well, let's go get some food. So I went and I got kind of some things. I got some chicken, I got some things to kind of snack on, came back thinking she would have come back by that point while I got some things to, you know, eat. And she hadn't. And at that point I couldn't find, we found some other servers. There was like 3 other servers. They were walking up and down. And I was like, you know, where's our server? Do you know where our servers is? And they're like, oh, she's probably getting something. I'm like, yeah, but it's been 25 minutes. It's been 30 minutes. They're like, oh, she'll be right back. She'll be right back. And so I went back and got more food, came back. My husband and son stayed back. And again, hadn't come back yet. So that was when I found the concierge, and he goes, oh, she's probably coming back. I'm like, it's been 40 minutes. He goes, what? And I said, yes, it's been 40 minutes. She has not come back. We have been pressing the button. I've gotten food twice. And he goes, I will find her. And he stopped what he was doing, and he literally hauled ass. And he just like started running. He was he could not believe that it had been 40 minutes that we had been pressing the button. He was fantastic. The other servers, it seemed like they were fantastic. Our particular server sucked. She came back, she took the order, she came back and then missed half the order. And it was like, yeah, where's the burger? We ordered 2 Diet Cokes and a burger. And she goes, oh, I guess I forgot it. Okay. And she goes, do you want me to go get it? And I was like, you know what? Just forget it. And at that point we were just done. I think she pretty much knew she wasn't getting a tip or anything. But she was horrible. And the perk of, not even the perk, what you're paying for with an Oasis or any cabana is service. Like, it's a great location. It's a, you know, sitting, and I will say, having the safe, having the cabana, because it did kind of rain a little bit. It was a cloudy day. It was cold. It was really nice to have that space. So I will say we got that, but we could have gotten that with a beach bed that's $150 to $200. Not a, you know, a cabana that runs, you know, $400 to $1,200. Like, that's the range that they run. And you pay for service, and that's the perk of that. And we didn't get that. So very disappointing. What was worse is I did contact Royal Caribbean. And like I said, I did kind of wrote like one email, and it wasn't just several emails, it was one email. And that was the one thing where I said, this was the thing that was the most upsetting. This is like, these are the things that need to be improved upon. Like, these are complaints, but you know, I understand the situation. Like, I understand why you're understaffed. I understand, you know, that certain things, but this was the one thing that there was no understanding. This was just unacceptable. And then they did respond. However, this was the one thing they just completely ignored. So I have since sent a follow-up with a link to the YouTube video where you can see where we are waiting, and I can happily provide timestamps. So hopefully they will respond, because again, it was just unacceptable. And then to have that type of service was very upsetting. And then to complain about it and be completely ignored was even more upsetting. Now, somebody did ask why I didn't go to guest services, and I had intended to go to guest services, but this was the last day of the cruise. And guest services, last day of the cruise, anybody who's been on a cruise knows that the last day is guest services was an 1.5 hour wait. So I did at one point stand in line, but the guy that came around, I said, I have a complaint regarding CocoCay, and I had to wait to the end. And I was just like, you know, I am not going to wait and to stand in line to complain my last night of the cruise, especially when I had lost a full day before. So I decided, you know what, it's not worth it. I'm gonna write a letter when I go home. So that was the reason why I didn't complain on the ship. And honestly, I don't know what they could have done on the ship, because it was at CocoCay. There was an issue, the issue with the bumper cars. I did complain, and that was handled. And I did have the sports manager contact me and apologize profusely, and that was addressed. So I thought that was something that could be handled, but I don't think this was something that could have been handled. But again, so probably very disappointing to have that happen with the Oasis Lagoon Cabana, but then also have a complaint just kind of like ignored. So we'll see what happens with that. I will update, if anything, I will update on a comment on this video or pin something to kind of update you, or maybe in the community tab. And finally, disembarkation. So disembarkation, we did have to put our luggage out 10 o'clock the night before. We didn't release the time, and then we're like, oh crap, it's at 10 o'clock. So we had to pack, and we did put our 2 main suitcases. But disembarkation, considering how long embarkation and how chaotic it was pretty chaotic. It was packed. It was a full ship. Disembarkation was fairly easy. Now, we were 54. They did ended up adding, we were like the last group. And they ended up adding 1 or 2 more groups after us, but we were the last group to be called, and which was great for us. That's what we like to do, because we like to stay. But we went and had breakfast and came back to our room to wait for our number to be called, because that's never happened before. But because we went and had breakfast at the Windjammer and came back and sat in our room waiting for our number to be called, because you know, we were just kind of sitting there waiting. We think we had to wait 15 or 20 minutes before it was called. But then once we got off the ship, it was really fast. We all have passports, really fast. It looked like it was going to take a while, but it was, I can't remember right now, but I think it was like less than 10 minutes, definitely less than 15. Parking lot is right there. We parked right there. Super easy. So disembarkation, I will say, was super easy, just as easy as it was at Port of Miami, and actually even a little easier because the parking lot is closer. So I thought that was great. But with that was, you know, that was disembarkation. So that is it. That is my recap of our spring break 2022 cruise on the Odyssey of the Seas. It was a really great cruise, and I kind of tell the, you know, the good and the bad, but I want to say we always have a good time. These are our vacations. Like, these are my vacations first before they're a vlog, and I try and document for our sake, but then also try to help others planning their own vacations. But we had a great time, even being sick. We had a great time. I'm planning on doing a video comparing Oasis class versus Odyssey class, because I do have a lot of input now as far as which I think are better for families. And so if you would like that video, definitely leave a comment below if you are interested in Oasis versus Odyssey class, and why I think maybe one is better than the other. I definitely have my opinions. We have already booked our spring break cruise for 2023 on Royal Caribbean, so we will be going back. You know, we didn't mind the crowds. We were prepared for them. I thought they were handled really well. Again, I don't expect the staffing issues to be an issue in 2023. If they are an issue in 23, then I would complain. I think it's understandable right now. But I thought it was great, and we had a great cruise. Can't complain with that. There were good and bads, but you know, I think we had a really great, fantastic cruise. With that, if you like this video, click like, click and subscribe. That way you get a notification every time I post a new video. Bye everyone.